All right, here we go. Tour of deserts of the world. The first one we're looking at is the Sonoran Desert in northern Mexico. As well, it is adjacent to the Mojave Desert in southern California, home of Death Valley, the highest recorded temperature on the planet. Pakistan recorded a 128.5 degrees, which is excessively hot, even for Earth. So you can see there is some development here. Anywhere you see some vegetation, there is, along the desert, that is an area that is threatened by desertification. Okay, any expanding deserts are going to cause problems for farmers on the margin of the desert, as well as urban centers, as is apparent in that last image. Take note of the keystrokes in Google Earth. Okay, that's the command key. Command right will rotate your view. When you see that target mark, that's a 2-finger scroll. Okay, now we're getting oriented. That's Northern California and the Rockies, Great Basin Desert between California and Kansas. All right, let's take a look down in Argentina. Las Pampas is a grass area like the savanna of Africa. The Pampas are adjacent to Patagonia and the deserts of the Atacama Desert in Chile. So the Pampas you can see here are a pretty arid region, dotted with lakes apparently here in this image. Argentines are known for their cattle grazing, so any excessive animal on the hoof are going to cause deterioration to the grass's ability to regenerate, as well as eating seedlings and small plants before they can mature. The more vegetation you have in an area, the more the soil is actually trapped by the roots. So when you take away the soil, when you take away the plant, you expose the soil to higher temperatures from the sun, higher wind exposure, water erosion from the beating of the raindrops. Now we're heading into Africa. We're going to look at the Sahel, which is in first here's the sand sea in the Sahara Desert. This is Libya, southern Libyan desert. And we'll just take a quick look in here and look at what a real desert looks like, not just a marginal grassland. This is one of the more beautiful locations on Earth. If you go in and see the sand dunes, you have effectively, each of those dunes can be up to 200 meters tall. Now we are in the flight simulator as well, so that's the heads-up display. You can see 20,000 feet. Gorgeous colors. There's lots of tourism there. They drive trucks around in the desert and you camp out for the night. Of course, that doesn't affect the desert because the desert actually changes day by day. Okay, the high temperature differential between nighttime and daytime causes severe winds, dust storms, sandstorms, and that means that the dunes are ever evolving and shifting across the desert. And that's a problem because for marginal areas, if a 200-meter sand dune shifts into your neighborhood, your house, your farm, your roads are going to be choked with sand. Okay, you can see there looking at about 200 or 2 to 300 kilometers. That's about a 800-kilometer view there. And now we're finding some vegetation by Morocco, or not Morocco, Libya. There's Egypt. The Nile, notice the agricultural areas along the Nile, that is all green vegetation. It's not just the river. The river floods every year and allows the adjacent lands to be inundated with silt and fresh water. Now this is the single largest sand desert in the world. This is called the Empty Quarter of Saudi Arabia. Okay, you can see there it's over 1,000 kilometers wide and 800 kilometers tall. Don't mind the blip in the screen there. Alright, so again, zooming in, seeing massive dunes, a little bit different shape than what we saw in Libya. And we'll get a little perspective there. If you see there are some clouds funny enough. And discolored pictures on the satellite image typically indicate that this is a more high resolution image. So when you zoom in on those, they actually can provide more detailed shot. When there's nice large pictures like this, typically it's low resolution. Okay, now we're moving over into Iran. That's Iran just beneath us, the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. Now right there's the Fertile Crescent. We're in Syria and Lebanon, and this area is affected by desertification, expanding deserts. Alright, now let's see where we're heading. Let's go into the Gobi Desert. There's Lake Baikal. That's the Gobi Desert in northern China. And again, you can see the coloration is different. That's due to different minerals present, as opposed to what we saw in Libya and Saudi Arabia. Nope. Okay, wrong page. There we go. Now, this is like a moonscape, really. There's very little inputs of humidity or precipitation. F and G on the flight simulator put the flaps out. Okay. So you can see it's pockmarked, and that's just due to wind-swept dunes, and they're not craters or impacts per se. So this is the Gobi Desert. Okay, let's speed it up here. Northern China is affected by this expanding deserts because nearly 400 million people live adjacent to this desert, and these urban centers are drawing more heavily on the water that is available. As well, the expanding population of urban areas requires greater amounts of food, which need to be produced in agricultural lands, which are not actually that widespread in this region. So you're going to have to distribute a lot of the vegetation and agricultural production from the south to the north. So just the distribution of water and food becomes a giant-sized problem in itself. Now we're going to sneak down into India and look at the Thar Desert, if I can find it here. So I'll put on the Command L, shows me the lines. So that's the Tropic of Cancer. So equidistant from the equator as is Australia's Tropic of Capricorn. Okay, so now we're in Pakistan. Pakistan and India share the Thar Desert. The river on the left is the Indus River. And you can see the square patches of cultivated lands there along the river. And when you get out too far, you just can't bring the water that far into the desert easily. So you can see there's a sparse vegetation during monsoon season, which is 4 months out of the year. Sometimes it actually turns into swamps in some areas of the Thar Desert. So now we're going towards Afghanistan here. There's another large sand sea. This is one that I'm not actually sure what the name of is, so we can do the research on that one. Another beautiful set of sand dunes called a sand sea. This is the fourth sand sea that we're looking at, and you notice there are apparent distinction between them. That's due to mineral makeup. Okay, based on the granules and the molecular structure of these minerals, it affects the way that the sands stick together, and therefore you get different windswept patterns. Furthermore, you have different wind patterns. Okay, is this one a different color? I'd say so. This is the Simpson Desert in Australia. This is pretty much one of the largest in the world also. Australia's got 4 deserts that are all adjacent to each other, and it's the most arid continent, apart from Antarctica, of course, but no one lives there, so I'm not really concerned. As it comes into view, we can see there are some small shrubs and rocks, but it is a vast expanse. It's not a place that you want to be left out. If you are left in the desert, one thing you can do, dig a hole, just stretch a piece of plastic across the hole, put a container at the bottom of the hole, and put a rock on top of the plastic. What happens is you'd end up making a greenhouse out of the hole, and any moisture in the soil would evaporate, condense on the plastic, and because it's peaked and has dipped in the middle, the condensation will come together and slowly drip into the vessel that you have awaiting it at the bottom. Right now we're going into the Northern Territory. We're going to look for areas that are highly affected, so these border regions that you see some vegetation along the edge of the desert. These are regions that are susceptible to desertification. Luckily enough, we don't have 400 million people living in this area, so the effects are going to be minimal, but it does cause climatic change continentally. This is a salt sea, apparently. You can see it's run by crystallized sodium chloride along the border of this lake. Really beautiful colors and fantastic lines. It looks like a dragon or something. Okay, so, but this again is not going to be helping the plants because of the high saline quality of the soil, so the vegetation is going to be very sparse. Typically small grasses that are saline tolerant. Okay, backing out. I think we have a couple more places that we can go. Okay. Now South Australia has some serious desert. There's Lake Eyre right there, the white spots. Okay, backing out of Australia. I think there's one more desert we haven't been to. Let's go to the Kalahari Desert and the Namibian Desert. First is the Kalahari. There are wild African animals living between the deserts and the grasslands here. And so the more that these deserts expand, the smaller the habitats of these wild animals become. You can see here more sand sea, okay, striated linear patterns of dunes, and some rocks and shrubbery apparently if you get down there. Straight lines are going to be sometimes roads or animal herd tracks, okay, migration patterns for buffalo. Alright, so these are some of the controls on Google Earth. Command arrow will turn. Option arrow will drive you slowly. Just the arrow will drive you quickly. And if you want to look up, it's command up, and if you want to look down, it's command down. You want to rotate clockwise, it's command right. Rotate counterclockwise, it's command left. Okay. So you can see there are some watering hole there that a lot of animals have been going to. And apparently those look like salty lake beds left over from an inland sea. Alright, let's go out to the Namibian desert on the coast. It's not very far away, in fact they are adjacent to each other. You can see the it's a ephemeral lake right there. So you have these rivers that they never make it to the sea. When they do get water, the creeks and rivers carve out a little swath, and then they dump their water into a lake, and the lakes dry up typically before they can never reach the sea, where there's another creek or river coming out of it. So let's look at the Namibian desert here. It's in Namibia, of all places. Now, oddly enough, I found a mining operation here by accident. I was trying to find just deserts, but so I'm wondering, what are they mining here? Those are little small mountains of some mineral. Maybe it's sand, maybe it's gravel. Not quite sure, but that's it. A pretty harsh environment to work. I don't know if I would want to work out in the desert myself. There must be an airstrip nearby, and those are areas that they are mining from. Alright, so let's go back north so we can... those are inland waterways, so they may actually be mining salt. Okay,